All right, here we go. First recording on how to use CageVault.com. All right, so if you were to go to CageVault.com, this is the page that you'll land on here. We have a special going right now where you can try out all of the website for at least 2 weeks, and all you're going to have to do is give an email to do that. And if you don't do that, you can still get to a few pages, but not really the good stuff. So once you've put in your email, then you're going to want to go to Analyze This Week's Fights. This is where I usually like to start. All right, so here it tells us, that we're looking at the fights on the 16th. It tells us that that's going to be, the main event's going to be Allen versus Costa. All right. Okay, then it starts to list the fights out. And here in the short format, it gives you it says Nicole, it gives us the name of the two fighters and tells us that there's a slight lean, that they're favoring Cagliari by a slight amount. Now, we have a few different ways on this website that it predicts fights, but with this one here, it's all about stats. There's 80 stats put into 10 categories, and we compare them to the fighters head-to-head, and that's how we pick the fight here. It's not always going to match what you see out in public because that's based on odds. So this is a little bit different. And sometimes it does go against the grain a little bit, and you'll have to make your choices then of whether you agree with it or not. Just this last week, twice it picked fights that I would have never picked, and it was correct. It picked Jim Miller, which really surprised me, and then, oh God, I can't remember the other one. But there was another one it picked too that I wouldn't have picked, and it did really well this last week. Most weeks it does really well. Anyway, okay, now if you want to dig into one of these fights, you click on it. Then we can see the two fighters. We can see who's favored, like I said. Now, first thing I like to do is I like to go look at the highlights. So I would click here, and then I can go look at the video highlights for each of the two fighters. I'm not going to do that, but that's what I could do. Okay, then I tend to like to go and look at what the odds are, which is next. And then I like to look at the stats, which is right here. And they won't show unless you click. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pages of stats. Most of the time it's filled out pretty good. Every now and then with a younger fighter, it's not filled out as good as it could be. And I'm working on that. Sometimes I've got to really dig to go find some data on somebody who hasn't fought in the UFC before, depending on where they're from and what fight group they came up in. Now, here we see the two fighters. We can see their age, their height, their weight, whether they're an orthodox fighter, a switch stance, lefty, how much they cost on DraftKings, and what kind of points they produce on DraftKings. We then have their striking. We can see here that this lady strikes 3.46 strikes per minute is her average, but she absorbs 7.01. So that part is not in her favor, although she has a big wrestling advantage, which we would see if we go over to the grappling. We can see that she's averaging 2.88 takedowns per fight compared to 0 with the other lady. Her takedown accuracy, she's landing 1 out of 4. And the only thing that was unusual here is she's only holding someone down for an average of 94 seconds in a fight. With that many takedowns, I just thought it might have been a little bit more. But it looks like grappling is going to probably be the way that she wins the fight. She'll probably be holding against the fence. And I mean, we can continue to look at other things, like we can look at their records. Here it tells us what kind of record they've got inside of the UFC. But then down here it has a full record. And then there's even a better record under their profile, which is in a different section. And the reason the one in the profile is a little bit better is because if you wanted to look at fighters that they've fought and then go look up their record, you can do that there in the profile, whereas here, this is more about just the two fighters, all their stats, and how they compare. Okay, now, after you've made it through all the stats, made it through the record, then if you wanted to, you can come down and see the prediction made by the artificial intelligence using those 80 stats, 10 different categories. And here we see it picks Nicole Cagliari. It thinks that her wrestling is going to be the advantage, but it's a slight. This is not a guarantee by any stretch of the imagination. It really sees this as a very close fight. All right, so That is the Fight Analyzer page. I did want to show one more thing, and that was a profile real quick, because the profile is kind of similar to this. If we were to pick, here's Shauna Bannon, she was one of the fighters we just saw. Here it does talk about her next fight and analyzes it just like we had. Here it gives a short breakdown of the record. Up here is probably what she is in the UFC, although I definitely have to check her record. Again, some of the younger fighters, their records are weird. We have some of her statistics over here, but not nearly as much as over in the Fight Analyzer page. We do have the fight history, though, and when you go to the fight history here, if you wanted to look at like her last opponent, Sam Hughes, you could click on her and get what her record is, too. So she's 4-5. And again, I believe that record is in the UFC, not their full record. We'd have to look down. Oh, no, that is her full record. Okay. Interesting. All right. Well, again, that was the Fight Analyzer and just a quick look at the profile because of some of the similarities between the two. Thank you.